Welcome to this video in my series where I'm talking about photographing professional wrestling. I've been attending local live pro wrestling shows on a regular basis for almost 14 years at this point. And I thought, why not do this series of videos where I can share some of my gained knowledge and experiences of attending and photographing at these events. This video is going to be the final one in the series to wrap it up, and before I give a few of my general thoughts on attending and photographing at these kind of shows, I'm going to cover a couple of topics that really don't need their own video. Storage, what I use the photos for, and what I could potentially use the photos for in the future. Firstly, storage, and following on from the last video which was about editing, immediately after I finish editing those images and converting them to what I call the edited JPEGs, I will back them up onto a specific hard drive. I actually just used to upload them to Facebook and only have the Facebook copies of my images, and I did it for a couple of years. So a lot of events I only actually have the Facebook copies of, but nowadays I make sure that I copy all of the files, all the images onto a specific hard drive. That way I have the best quality copies of the images, so if I need them for editing in the future or editing a project or whatever I want them for, even just to look at or a couple of bits to talk about in this video, then I have the very best versions possible. And talking of Facebook, that is really comes to how I use the photos, and that is actually social media. I really generally share my images on social media, especially Facebook. I've always had a great relationship with the promotions that I attended over the years and was able to take firstly video clips and then photos at. And part of the agreement that I had with them, especially one that I used to go to, was to share the images, which I have always been more than happy to do. And as I said, I would upload them to Facebook. So as I kind of kept them separate in the editing process, each segment or match I would upload to Facebook as its own individual Facebook photo album. Just like editing and just like keeping the JPEG separate, this just makes it easier for me to upload them, to keep them all separate, to search through them. So if somebody asked me did I take photos of a particular match, which if I was there I would have, or if I had thought, oh, I have this particular photo from this show, I want to see that or I want to find it, then I could easily look through the Facebook albums and just search for the match instead of having to go through a lot of photos. One quick thing I will say about uploading to Facebook is how I do that is actually, I guess I said, I upload each segment or match onto Facebook as their own individual photo album. What I will do is, as I upload each album, I will keep the privacy settings to only me. So of course only I can see the albums that I'm uploading. Obviously I've titled the photo album normally the name of the show and obviously the company, kind of the name of the show and the match, really. Just the name of the company, like FCW June 24, and it'll say, I don't know, Mackey versus Tierney or whatever it is. I'll title that album, obviously the name of the company maybe, or the name of the show and the match that it is. But as I upload each album, as I said, I'll keep the privacy to only me, and then after all of the albums are uploaded in chronological order, I will go back through those albums and I will add the description in that album. So again, it's the company, maybe the name of the show if there is one, the date and the venue. And if it's a multi-person match, then I will tend to add the names in the description as well, if I can. If it's Rumble or something like that, I can't really add all of the names. But if it's just like a several person match involved, then I'll add the names. So in the description, it'll be the name of the company, the name of the show, the date, and the venue. Really, that'll be the description, and again the name of the individuals involved if I can't get it in the title of the album. Only then, once I've added that description, I will change that particular album's privacy setting to public, save those changes, and then that album now becomes viewable by the public. And I will go through the rest of the albums doing that. So I will only allow the photo albums to be available on Facebook publicly once I've uploaded all of them. Previously, I wouldn't do that, and obviously, again, as I've spoken about throughout the series, and especially the last video about editing, talking about, if you've got other commitments or I've got to be elsewhere, I can't spend the time sitting on Facebook and uploading these images, then it kind of, I felt, was a bit disrespectful the way that I used to do it by uploading an album or two, then I had to go off elsewhere, or I didn't get the chance for a couple of days to add the other photo albums to Facebook. So there would, one or two would be sitting there publicly, and everybody else would have to wait for their images. I just find it better to upload them all, then add the description, then all make them public at the same time. I also, of course, use the photos on YouTube for videos like this where I'm sitting talking about professional wrestling, or of course I used to do on a regular basis photo videos where I would just take a selection of the photos that I took during the show, add some music from the YouTube Music Library, and upload a video there where people can just sit and watch some of the latest images that I've taken at a particular show. I would certainly say that you don't need to, whether it be Facebook or even certainly on YouTube, you don't just need to use your latest and greatest images. You can delve back into your library if you're building one up of wrestling images. Over time, you can delve back into, especially if it's the same promotion that you're attending, then you can delve back into your archive and use older photos on things like YouTube videos. You don't just need to use your most recent photos in any video or any social media posts. This brings me to what I could potentially use the photos for in the future. And there's really two thoughts on this. Firstly, photo books. This is something I've done twice, and it's just something for me to have on my shelf. It's just one of these. There's various different companies and services available where you can make a photo book or get your image printed on something. But certainly a photo book is still a kind of fairly popular thing to do. I see it on YouTube from some of the more professional YouTube channels where they've done a certain project, presidential candidate, 10-pin bowling league, whatever it is, and some of them will actually go ahead and make a personal photo book of some of the images for that particular project. And obviously these kind of photo books are good for physical copies of your images that you can sit down at your own leisure and look through. And you can actually add text and everything like that. There's so many of these different services. So I think a photo book is a good idea if you want to do it for professional wrestling images, for a particular promotion, or any really subject of photography that you've done. You can go online. There's so many of these different services and businesses where you can put something like this together. You can download the software, spend however long you need to put it all together and design it, then use that to make your order. So something like that to sit on your shelf is potentially a good idea. I've been thinking about making one myself. I would have to really get to more shows to do it. I want to obviously try and get to more shows. It's been a bit difficult lately as I record this. And I obviously want to try and see if I can add any more photos. A lot of my preferred ones are ones that I've used in this series. So certainly a photo book, it's an option to think about, especially again if you want a physical copy of your images that you can sit and down and look through at your leisure. Another kind of way that I was thinking about in terms of future use of my images is something like an exhibition. I've had a couple of friends and family that have been involved in various different types of exhibitions over the last few years. Not that anybody would be willing to, or really, it's not really worth, having an exhibition of my work, my photos. But certainly, and I know wrestling is a bit of a niche thing, and it's really generally ignored when it comes to local activities or local area exhibitions. It's widely just basically ignored because it's professional wrestling. Even if there's a rich history of pro wrestling in the area or pro wrestlers that have come from the area, it generally tends to be overlooked and ignored. However, if somebody was to come to me in the years to come and say they want to get a few of my images, they've seen them maybe online, and they want to use them for some type of exhibition about wrestling or local area, I'd have to certainly think about it, I suppose. It obviously depends on the specific details of who's involved, who's organising it, who else is involved, who else is loaning any work to it, what's the situation. So it's all the really specific details. But if that was to ever happen, I think it's something that photographers should be open to. I know that there's kind of limits to what you can sell. You're doing like something like street photography because of image rights and stuff. Although you own the copyright to the photo, there's people in it and stuff like that. So it's kind of a bit of a legal grey area sometimes. But and I'm not looking to sell any wrestling stuff at all. But certainly, exhibitions, that kind of thing, it's something to worth considering, I think, in the future. Obviously, it depends on how you're using images. Maybe you got them for some kind of educational university, college project, whatever your reasons. But certainly, these kind of exhibitions in the future, it is certainly something worth considering. Again, this actually is true for various different topics and subjects of photography that you might actually do. As I look to wrap up this video and especially this series talking about photographing professional wrestling, I wanted to make a couple of points first of all, which number one is try and get to know the camera that you're using. So many camera brands have different settings and different ways of accessing these settings, and obviously getting to know the particular camera that you're using can be a very useful thing to do because depending on what settings you're going to use, where they are, how to access them and how to use them most of all. So getting to know your camera and the settings, and obviously so much of these modern cameras are so customizable, it's unreal. So get to know and get to lay out the camera as you need it and as you can. This will certainly help you use the camera to the best that you could possibly do. Also, I will say, try and kind of, if you're new to photography or kind of new to doing anything with cameras, try and study photography as well, especially things like the aperture, ISO and shutter speed, exposure triangle. How all of these settings correlate and work together with each other. It's something that I genuinely did not do when I first started taking photos at shows. That was kind of really my first regular thing of taking photos, was at the wrestling shows. And I didn't really take the time and opportunity to study photography, which I really wish I'd done. I'll throw up a couple of images that I took from a previous company, but I've got a lot of them that look this horrible. So that's on me because I didn't take the time and opportunity to really study photography, which I should have done. And I think if you do those two steps of getting to know your camera and study photography, I think that your photography will genuinely improve faster than mine did. I think if you, again, this all takes time, as I've said throughout the series, but certainly if you do those kind of things, then I think your skills will progress in a little bit of a quicker time. Don't worry about it if it's not too. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to say you must get better instantly. It does take time and practice, but certainly I think if you do those two things, it will help you a lot. I will also say, in terms of the photography, something that I've always had, a mantra that I've always had in regards to these shows, and I've genuinely said this for about the whole time that I've taken photos, is that my photography happens around the wrestling. The wrestling doesn't happen around my photography. As I've said throughout the series, I pay my ticket money and I end up sitting wherever I end up sitting. That's my vantage point, that's my view, and I just simply try and take the best images I can from that particular view. Obviously, the show will go on no matter, unless something major happens, the show will continue, the matches will continue. They're not going to wait on you. Sad kind of thing, but true. And I don't think in these days of big memory cards and really good batteries that you're going to be rushing to try and change memory cards or change batteries. I would always do that kind of thing at the interval if I feel I want to. There is normally an interval at these shows in the UK, so I tend to sometimes change the battery in the interval, even if I don't feel that I particularly need to. Sometimes I do it, or there's maybe a couple of moments between the matches. I will tend to do it then if I feel it necessary, or if I want a fresh battery for the main event. So there is plenty really to kind of concentrate on, but the wrestling will happen. Your photography has to go, just work as the wrestling is underway. So they're not going to stop for you, and they're not going to kind of wait around for you. But generally, I don't think these days they have to. Modern cameras are so good that you should be, if you're ready with your camera, you can keep photographing right the way throughout a match. But certainly, you've just got to remember that the wrestling's going to happen. You're not number one priority. Yes, it's great if you've got permission to be there and photograph at the shows, but the wrestling will continue. But again, just try and concentrate on capturing the best photos that you can and actually enjoy yourself. Also, one final piece of advice is I share my images. I've talked about it earlier in this video about putting them on Facebook, so I let the wrestlers and the promotion see the images that I have. It's always been part of the agreement I've had with these companies. Especially Fair City Wrestling, who I go to their shows nowadays, and I've always had that. Again, I've been more than happy to share my images with them since I've started going to their shows, since that real promotion began. So, it's kind of one of the things I think that can lead to great photographic opportunities and experiences is building that relationship with the promotion that you're attending. Being nice to them, sharing their images, allowing the wrestlers to see them and using them on the fan pages. I don't make money out of this. That's not the whole deal with me. So I especially at the Fair City Wrestling, I want to support that promotion. I want to help get the word out about them. I want to help people realise that there's a really good promotion locally nowadays. So I am supporting that and getting the word out, which again, as I said earlier in the series, and I think I may have said it a few times, partly why I started things like YouTube was to try and get the word out about the local pro wrestling scene and the wrestlers and some of the great matches and events that they were putting on at the time. So I helped my own way of trying to help promote the local wrestling scene, and again, that might lead to some really great photographic opportunities of the wrestlers posing for you, or they might kind of wrestle around you a little bit in terms of doing some of your side of the ring wherever you are. It only happens very occasionally, but sometimes I do hear that they wanted to do this on near where you are because they wanted to try and get a good photo from you of this particular spot or bit of the match that they're doing. And it doesn't happen too regularly, obviously, but certainly if that kind of thing happens, take advantage of it. Take advantage of any opportunities and experiences that may come your way from attending and photographing at these shows. I will also say, Genuinely, attending local pro wrestling shows can be a fantastic and great experience. It is so much different from sitting and watching wrestling on television or some streaming service. I would recommend to any pro wrestling fan, whether you're interested in taking photos at the show or not, to attend a good local promotion in your area. If you've got a good, decent promotion in your area, go to their shows. Pay your ticket money, help support them, visit the merchandise stand. One of the best ways to show your support to a company is to buy your tickets and attend those events. So certainly, I would recommend doing that. It is such a different experience again than watching it online or TV. It is so much fun, and genuinely, these shows can be, as I said in Capture Reaction, I'm not even overemphasizing it, or these shows can genuinely be very, very popular. I've seen FCW shows over the last few years have been really, really popular and continue to be so. And a lot of the fans will go there and have a great time. In fact, I can't really show the audio or feature the audio on this channel, but the last show that I went to as I record this was the Dundee Academy of Professional Wrestling's Student Showcase. And genuinely, 100% genuinely, the audience were really into the show from the beginning to the end. In fact, right at the end, when when the wrestlers were dancing, or the dancers were wrestling, or whatever, but certainly when the wrestlers were dancing, the crowd were really cheering and hollering, and they were up. Some of them were up and dancing, which is why my angle of that video is not the greatest. They were really genuinely having fun and enjoying the show, and I've seen that. Again, I've not been to the main shows for a little while because of different commitments I've had in the last few months. But certainly when I've been to the shows, they've been packed and the crowd have been really into the shows. So it can be a lot of fun. And something I would certainly say is to take the opportunity to enjoy. Again, if you're a wrestling fan, I think you will really enjoy attending these shows, watching the matches. There's some great young talent out there, the trainees that I saw on that show, and obviously some of the main roster kind of guys. There are some great, fantastic matches that you will see on these types of shows. So it is a wonderful and worthwhile experience in attending local live pro wrestling events by decent companies. Seek out a good, decent company, avoid the horrible ones, and I think you will have a really good time. So I've actually really genuinely enjoyed my whole time of attending at different companies. I really go stick to Fair City Wrestling these days just because of again all the commitments and everything like that. But certainly I have really enjoyed over the years going to these shows, being able to catch media. Obviously I've still got a ton of them on hard drives and things backed up that I can look at in years to come, which again, kind of one of the advantages of doing this is that you go to the show, you enjoy it, you can watch it back on that company's social media platforms, because a lot of them have the YouTube and the Facebook and these different platforms where they will upload matches and shows that they've previously held, and they also got the photos. So it's absolutely worthwhile doing, and I think again this whole thing takes a little bit of practice and experience to really hone your skills, and I will never claim to be the best photographer in the world at all, even pro wrestling stuff. I've still got a lot to learn and a lot to concentrate on, but certainly I enjoy going to these shows when I can, photographing at them and looking back, seeing my results. I've still got a lot of work to do on improving my photography, but certainly the journey that I've been on the last almost 14 years at this point on a regular basis of attending these shows has been really fun, and I look forward to continuing this.